Trying to adjust it a little bit there. All right, guys, we're live. I'm heading back from West Tech Performance. Gonna have to give you a little bit of gangster lean there, see what's going on. Had a good trip down. Didn't get to do quite as much dyno testing as I wanted, but I got to do some cool stuff. If you guys haven't taken a look, make sure you guys take a look at the video that I put up on airflow testing the Barra. I also included the valve spray, installed height, the seat pressure, the open pressure, all of that stuff. So good Barra information, plus all of the flow numbers, both intake and exhaust. Oh, I'm lost. That's what happens when I don't have good equipment. So I gotta set you up somewhere else. Rolling. So my camera mount kind of failed me there. What the heck happened? So I'll have to go low school. So anyway, we were able to, I'm sure that you guys saw, hopefully you guys watched the video. So I was able to airflow test the Barra, but before I had to do that, I had to disassemble the Barra, which was interesting. So we learned a lot of things. Had a couple of moments during the disassembly process. So I learned that you got to make sure that you take everything off before you try to pull the intake manifold. Every connection, every hose, in most cases it was probably a harness issue, so we wanted to make sure that we took care of all the harness stuff off, and that made me that caused me basically to lose the intake gasket, so I'll have to source another one of those. The other thing that happened is I'm told that this is a fairly common thing, is taking the coil plugs out. Those things were, I don't know, maybe that thing had never maybe they'd never changed plugs or service it or anything, because those things are on there pretty good. They seem fairly solid. So a couple of those came apart, and maybe they can be put back together, but two of them, because I couldn't dig out the plastic or the rubber portions, two of those are definitely damaged, so I'm gonna have to replace those. Luckily I've got that other motor there, so if we have to run it, I can run those other ones, and usually twisting those things helps get them out, a little bit easier. But when it's your first time, you're learning. And I tried doing that, but they were kind of having none of it. I tried spraying WD-40 and stuff down there, but I think maybe, I don't know if it was locked onto the plug or if it's locked onto the outside in the tube. So that's all part of it. Also, I noticed that when I was taking apart on one of these motors, because of the way that they shipped them standing on end, basically resting on the crankshaft, and that's not a good idea. And then one of the sensors was damaged. Whatever's in the back of the head is probably some kind of coolant temp or something back there. Not that we really need it for what we're doing, but because a lot of times on all of the standalone systems, we can even do this, I think, if we run a factory deal, we would zero out the temperature correction stuff so that there's no correction, and we just adjust the air fuel where we want it to, and we can put it wherever we want, so that's not a big deal. A lot of times we run without coolant temp sensors or without air temp sensors, so that's not a big deal. And hopefully we'll be running this on some sort of standalone, like a Haltech or something. But who knows, maybe we might try a factory harness and a factory ECU that we can run an SET or something else with, and that might be more common, that might be more applicable, at least for the guys in Australia, because that's what they would be using to tune the ones that they have in the cars. The other thing that happened is this particular motor, it has at least, I don't know if the valve is bent, an exhaust valve, and it only seemed like it was one. I haven't checked them all, but the exhaust valve is either bent or it's burned or otherwise damaged because it wasn't leaking very well. I tried to do a leak down test before we took it apart, before we finally took the cams and chains and stuff off before we pulled the head. So that's going to have to be addressed also. I don't know if I should probably I have one other Barra, same type of motor, to BA. So I guess I could probably do a leak down test on that one to see if it's okay too. But when we pressurized the cylinder, there was the telltale sign of air escaping out the exhaust to tell us that something's going on. And we tried tapping the valves to see if maybe there was some debris in between there. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but it did not work this time. So again, the thing is, and I may do a video on this, but when you get a used motor, whether we get it from the wrecking yard or shipped all the way from Australia in this case, it's a little bit of like Schrodinger's cat, that when it's locked inside the box, the engine can be either good or not good, and you don't know until you actually dig into it and find out, basically until you open the box in the case of Schrodinger's cat. So it's an interesting deal, and it's all part of the excitement. If you guys want, you guys can take a look at this. Look in the back of the truck. You guys can see, if you look closely, you can see I've got something in the back, and that would be, go ahead and guess what it is. Go ahead, I'll wait. You guys you might be able to read the valve cover. But I picked up another motor today because I couldn't resist. I probably shouldn't have, because my storage things are all full and I can't fit any more motors in there, so I got to get rid of some of them. I mean, I literally can't even walk in there. It's terrible. But this 2.2, I haven't seen one of those in the wrecking yard for, I don't know, I'm thinking back, it might be 8 or 10 years since I've seen one in there. And I always look because, it's like anything else. When you're driving around, or when you're walking around and you go to the wrecking yard, even when you're not looking for something, you might not be looking for a 2.2 turbo Chrysler, but if you walk by something and it says turbo on it, you're definitely going to stop and take a look. I mean, how could you not? How could you call yourself a car guy or gal if you're walking around the wrecking yard? Honestly, if you're walking around the wrecking yard, there's a good chance that you're a car person anyway. But if you don't stop off at all of the known turbo cars, even ones that you don't want, even ones that you wouldn't modify or change or even take home or even consider using in a project, you still got to stop and check and see if the turbo is there, see if the intercooler is there, see if it's got something cool on it. So this was no different. I was walking around and I spotted this Chrysler 600, and I'm like, there's no way, because earlier I had spotted a LeBaron. If you watch the video of me walking around in the wrecking yard, you'll see that I saw LeBaron. I'm like, oh, cool, I'm gonna go over and check that out. And then, it's a V6. And I know the V6 works, but it's not a 2.2 turbo, so I was a little disappointed. But after seeing the 600, I'm like, oh, what if there's something in there? And the thing is that when I walked up on the 600, the hood was closed, so it made it like that much more exciting. So you could hear the music in the background, dun dun dun. And then we lifted the hood, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's a turbo motor, and it's still there, and it's all still there. That's the thing. I looked in the back and thought, oh, well, here's why it was, at least we know why it came to the wrecking yard. More than likely, it didn't seem to be damaged. But the wiring harness, on the backside where the turbo is and where the fuel leaks could happen, where things will light on fire. It did burn the harness and a few of the sensors and stuff, and even got into a little bit of the plastic cover. But the front timing belt cover is not a critical element. It might be nice not to have that on there if we can run it like that. That way we can make an adjustable timing gear and advance and retard the factory camshaft before we might put some sort of Schneider regrind camshaft in it, because I'm still of the mind that these things will need camshaft and will definitely respond to it, and it'll make them happier. I mean, it's an 8-valve head, and it's not even a good 8-valve head. It doesn't flow a ton, so we know that the head responds to porting, and that it will be better if we port it. But they'll also be better if they have, 20 degrees more cam duration on them. So we'll see. We'll take a look at that. The thing that's exciting about this is, even when I was talking to other people about cars and GLHs and turbo motors that they had, almost all of them were modified in some way. And what I really wanted was something to start out with this stock. And this is an 84, so this is really bottom of the barrel kind of thing. So, and I say that with nothing but love for the turbo motor, because it's the early one, so it has the wastegate's not controlled by the computer. It has a draw-through throttle body setup, meaning the throttle body's in front of the turbo, and it's non-intercooled. And while you might think, well, yeah, but why would you want that? Well, because you want that for the starting point. You want that for the baseline. Like, I want to find out, and especially because I haven't seen many of these things run. I don't know that I've ever seen one. I don't think we've ever run one that I can remember at the dyno, on the dyno at West Tech, even way back when they were new and fresh and fun. But running one on the dyno, I haven't. So hopefully I'm reconnected. I'm going to start off with a baseline, and this is it. The throttle body before the turbo, no intercooler, stock turbo, stock downpipe. So I'm hoping all the internals are stock and that it's a runner, and we'll find out after I do I'm taking it home so I can do a leak down test on it to find out if it's all solid. I don't think I haven't even checked yet to see if it spins. I was just so excited about getting it. That's what happens. You see something new. It's like going to get a new car. You're like, I really want this thing to be fantastic. And it stops us a lot of times from looking to see if the thing actually is fantastic. I knew that the thing was burned, but I thought it's only like mostly burned, not all the way burned. So hopefully it'll work out good, and then I can get the bell housing mounted up on the dyno. We can get a bell housing from a manual 2.2 Dakota and run this thing, and it'll be good. Now I could probably run it with a flex plate, or we can get a flywheel. So if we get the bell housing off of the manual version in the truck, I can get the flywheel too, because I'd like to run it with a flywheel. I looked at the flex plate on this, and we've run lots of different motors with flex plates. Like, I'll probably run the 3800 with a flex plate, which I'm definitely going to run the next time I'm down. We'll get the bell housing for that. So I've run lots of them with flex plates, but it looks like on the Dodge that the flex plate is fairly close to the block. So I don't know how much room we have to get behind there, maybe with a button head or something, but it's going to be really hard to tighten everything up if we don't have access behind the flex plate. So a flywheel will be nice, because then we can just bolt our drive plate to the flywheel, and that'll make life easier. But I'm excited about running I'm always excited about running motors on the dyno, but on this 2.2 I'm really excited about running it, because we'll start off with 146 or 4. This one might even be 142 horsepower. Start off with that, and we can find out cool things like, what happens if we blow through the throttle body instead of draw through it? Will it help? Does it only help when we're running more boost? How much boost can we run? Can we just run this thing on E85 with no intercooler? What happens when we add an air-to-water intercooler, an air-to-air intercooler? Then we can try different turbos, and obviously this manifold is not ideal. There are much better manifolds. So we can do the different manifolds. I think this one might be a log manifold. That's what I would call it. It looks like a log exhaust manifold. It's got no runner length. It's got, it's got nothing going for it other than it mounts directly. The turbo just blows right into the manifold, so you get the good response. It just doesn't make any torque because it has no runner length. So we know that it will benefit from that, and most of you guys that are watching, I'm sure, probably saw the custom manifold that we did for the Atlas motor. So there's no reason I can't make something like that for the Dodge as well. That's assuming that the other ones that are out there are not, a significant step up. Because if this thing, and from the looks of where these things make power on the chassis dyno, even the fairly high horsepower ones, they're all at fairly low engine speeds, which tells me that this thing's going to want runner length in the manifold. I mean, it's going to want, you know, at least I would try at least 10 or 12 inches of runner length. If this thing's going to be a 6,000 RPM motor, then you could add a lot of torque. And again, that'll be another cool test, because when you run this thing with this manifold and go, okay, look, it makes this boost and it makes this. And then the cool thing is we can hook up our electronic boost controller to make sure that we have the same boost curve with both of the manifolds. And then because we have, or whatever we set it at, if we have a consistent boost control and it's providing the same boost curve, then we can really see what the different manifolds do. The other thing, obviously, is I could run this thing NA, which would also be interesting. I would just need to get a header or an other kind of exhaust manifold. We might be able to just take the turbo off of this and run a pipe off of this stock exhaust manifold. I mean, I wouldn't expect very much from that turbo manifold in NA trim. Again, it has no primary length, but at least it would give us an idea. I'm curious to see, because these things make so little power relative to their displacement. I mean, 146 horsepower or whatever in turbocharged trim at 7 pounds, you know, tells me that they're going to be close to like 100 horsepower naturally aspirated. And that's, you know, that's okay. But if you look at it as a 2.2 liter, you know, that's not even, what's that, about 50 horsepower per liter, less than 50 horsepower per liter. That's not too stellar. So obviously there's a lot of things that you can do to make the motor better even before you add boost, and then adding boost is going to make life even better. So I'm excited about the 2.2 liter, because once you have a turbo, you can do lots of cool stuff. Like I said, we can try different types of intercoolers. I'll run air to air on a lot of stuff. I'm sure I can get my hands on the T2 stuff, which is a very common upgrade that guys did. So we can show what that typical T2 stuff does. And, you know, we kind of know based on the factory power ratings, but we can show what they do and what it just does to charge temperature, all that, and how to improve it. We can show the response rate of different size turbos. You know, that's all good. We can show E85. We can put big injectors in it. And one of the things I wanted to do on these, because if a lot of guys don't have access to a standalone fuel injection, which is what we'll run on this, we won't run a factory one on the dyno if we run it on the dyno. But I want to show them how to calculate injector size to add E85, even if you have the same, if you have the same fuel flow, the same injector duty cycle supplied to the injector. If you want to feed it E85, you need to go up a certain percentage size in the injector to run that E85 if the computer is supplying the same pulse width to the injector. And there's a way to do that, and it might work out fairly well. I don't know that it will work out for low duty cycles like at cruise and part throttle, but the nice thing about that is we can get it dialed in, I think, with simple math at wide open throttle, and then the part throttle stuff can be adjusted because it will be running in closed loop. So I think that would kind of work out, and it would be interesting. We can take a look at different air inlets going into the turbo and see how that affects the turbo and response rate. I like the fact that this right now has the factory downpipe, although it looks like it has a section of the factory downpipe, and then it has another tube that's welded onto it. So maybe, and it wouldn't surprise me given the age of this vehicle, that sometime in its life, somebody did some kind of exhaust upgrade on it. Maybe they even just had to replace the exhaust that had rusted itself off and fell off, which, you know, wouldn't be unusual. But, you know, we can run E85, we can turn the boost up with this stock little turbo, see where it can go. You know, there's a lot of really cool tests. And then guys in the Mopar community, in the mini Mopar community, can send in suggestions and go, hey, look, we've always wanted to see this test versus this test. Maybe the different heads, maybe the different factory heads, to find out what they do. Maybe guys, we won't do a big bang on this motor if it's running, at least not until after we've run lots of testing with it. Since this is an early one, I don't think it's I doubt that somebody swapped the common block into this or swapped a 2.5. All of that stuff is possible because they interchange, but you know, I would tend to lean more to, this thing didn't look like it was hopped up at all. It looked like it was all stock. So somebody maybe was just driving this thing, but you never know. But all that would be cool. It'd be cool to find out that it is a 2.5, or you know, that it has upgrades, whatever that is. That will be a neat deal. I like the fact that this thing had a relatively new oil filter on it. That means that somebody was taking care of it. The plug wires look like they're in good shape, so those, at some time somebody had changed those. This thing had oil leaks because there's a lot of you know, oil and dirt built up and stuff around. This thing's gonna have to go through a good cleaning before obviously it gets worked on. But it'd be nice to actually have a clean motor that goes on the dyno that's not you know, your typical kind of junkyard mess. So I can make all that happen before we put it on there. But you know, when we get these motors from the wreck, it's always like, okay, fingers crossed. This is going to be a good one. To be a solid runner. This is going to be one of those that wants to run. It wants to live, despite the fact that it, you know, it's obviously had a little bit of a traumatic childhood with the fire and everything. But I'm hoping that we can get some good data, and you know, I love doing intercooler tests, so we can run the air to air, and then we can run air to air versus air to water, and different length tubing, all of that stuff, because all that stuff is good. And then you guys, if you guys are listening and watching, you know, make some suggestions. Let me know what you guys want to see. If we take a look and find out that this thing doesn't have all the response that we want, maybe try a smaller turbo on it, you know. Although I think that these turbos are factory ones are fairly small, because it's not a lot of power output, and the factory usually wants you know, nice. They usually want them to be fairly responsive, because that's what guys like. They like the feel of that torque. They basically want their little turbo motor to feel like a, you know, they want their 2.2 to feel like a 3-liter or a 3.5-liter V6 of that period. And so that's kind of what Dodge was trying to do, and still get reasonable fuel mileage. It would also be interesting to find out if we put, you know, let's say that we wanted to upgrade this thing with forged pistons or forged rods, then we could do maybe a hike in compression, because I think that these things are around 8-to-1 or something. So if we made it 9-to-1 or 10-to-1 and found out, okay, how much was that compression worth in power, and then did it, you know, how did it affect boost response? All good stuff. So let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you want to see, and also what kind of power numbers have guys seen with the stock bottom ends on these things. You know, obviously we're assuming that you put ring gap in it, but I know the later blocks are better, and I'm sure that the later rods and all that stuff are better, but what about these early ones? You know, these are like the 05 Atlas motors, the 05s of the 2.2 family, or the Gen 3 LS. You know, all of the ones that don't get nearly enough, or the BA Barra for that matter. You know, all the non-turbo stuff, all the stuff that doesn't get any love. It'd be interesting to see where these can go, and can we? What do you guys think? Can we fairly easily double the power output of this thing if we put, you know, an intercooler and big injectors and E85 and ring gap in these things? Can these things go like, can we go to, if it's making 140, let's say, or 150, will it go to 300 safely without damaging the rods? And if, and then here's the thing: if it goes 350, well, the next question is, or will it go 300? Well, the next question is, will it go 350? And then 400, and then wherever ultimately the limit is. For me, what I like doing on these motors is, and this is the way that it is with almost any motor, is I like getting whatever power output we're looking at, like for this 2.2, let's say we set a goal of 300 horsepower. I would also like to get that at the lowest possible boost pressure. And I know that that's not always necessary, like when we're talking about LS stuff. If you want, let's say you want a 600 horsepower motor, well, the easiest way to do that obviously is with a turbo, and then you can make 600 with a turbo with a stock cam, but it's going to take 10, 11, 12 pounds of boost. But if you put a cam in it, it's going to take like 7 or 8 pounds. And so that's why making these things, obviously boost is the easy thing, so you just keep turning that up. On a non-intercooled version, that's obviously not ideal. And on an intercooled one, you can turn the boost up, and especially an intercooled one with the 85, you can turn the boost up. But ultimately, I'd like to make the thing more powerful NA. The other thing that we can look at is, what about the exhaust manifolds on these things? I know after going down the rabbit hole and searching all of the information from Allpar and Mini Mopars and all of the various places that we go to look for all of the information on these motors, it seems to be that guys are not putting on aftermarket exhaust manifolds anyway, like tubular manifolds, to try to improve the power output of the hot side. And again, it's an interesting test. It might be that if we make a tube manifold or a log manifold or something other than the factory one, that can we get more power at the same boost? Does that only become beneficial when we're at higher boost, let's say? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and let me know if you think that a dedicated tube head, or even like a fancy one, with longer tubes, not real long, not like the crazy stuff I did on the Atlas motor, but something that has, maybe 5 or 6 inches of tubular runner length, at least so that it looks fancy. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about the 2.2. That's and it's always this way with new projects. You look at the new project and you go, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And right next to it is the other motor that you said exactly the same thing about, and now it's all apart. Like the Barra, like the Atlas, like the 455, like the Slant 6. Yada, 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 like all of them, basically. I think that's how I make myself feel better. I think that's my therapy. It's like junkyard therapy. I think that needs to be a shirt. I need junkyard therapy. Is that we get disappointed, like with I wanted the Slant 6 to run, but really it's hard to complain about a free motor. And thanks again, Bob, for the free motor for the Slant 6, which is awesome. But now the head's done, like there's less enthusiasm to go put that on. For me, I'm enthusiastic about it. I actually want to do it. I want to run the Slant 6 because I want to run the Aussie Speed manifold more than anything now. But for me, it was a lot of times these things are just a matter of time. So when I come down, I've decided there are a couple things that need to happen. One, not go chase the shiny new or not so shiny new motor. So new over in the wrecking yard, so no more motors. The other thing is I need to be focused on getting the stuff done that needs to get done. So I need to come down, be organized, have a plan, choose the motor, like the 2.2 or any of the list of motors that I just told you about, and decide, okay, on this trip, here's what we're getting done on that motor. Don't steer away from that. Don't veer off. Don't look at other shiny stuff. Get that done, and then we can move on to something else. And the problem with this, and it's not really a problem, but you also have to be prepared. You have to have a plan B. Because a lot of times, like with the Slant 6, I come down, okay, I'm going to run the 347 Pontiac, which is awesome, and put a tri-power on it, which I'm very excited about. I'm going to run the Slant 6, which would be cool because, hey, it's a Slant 6. And then I come down, and neither one of those can run for different reasons, but neither one of them can run. So I have to have backup plans. I have to have a Buick that's ready to run, or a Cadillac that's ready to run, or an LS that's ready to run, or anything. I like more if I'm in other guys' mode that I would, do it with other guy's motor, which would be better. But you also have to have a backup plan. So it just takes a lot of, organization and apparently lots of motors that are disassembled. But it's all good stuff. So let me know what you guys are doing. Unfortunately, I can't be answering any questions tonight because I'm just rolling. But hopefully you guys have gone and taken a look at the video. I liked disassembling the Barra. That was cool. I can't wait to get the 4200 head back so I can airflow test that. And I'll be interested to compare it to the Barra. I think ultimately, after going through what I went through, if you guys haven't watched it, here's a little spoiler alert for the Barra video. But after doing what I did with the Barra and making my shims and having to measure the stacks and all that, I think I might go back and make a test fixture with adjustable screws so that I can get the thing at exactly the valve lifts I want. Now, measuring the stacks, I'm probably within, I don't know, I would say I'm probably 6,000 or 7,000 within that range of the thing being right on. But it's not as like precise, and I just don't want people comparing those numbers to other exact numbers that somebody else has, or that when we run the 4200. So I'm going to see, what I want to do is get the 4200 back and maybe design a fixture for a 4-valve that will allow me to run both the Barra and the 4200. So I have to see how much essentially adjustability, if any. I don't, maybe they're going to be close enough that, with a big flat end on the adjuster screw, that we can do what we need to do. But we'll see, and if we have to make an adjustment. Going through a bad area here. All right, guys, we're going to cut this one short. Hopefully you guys got to watch the videos, and I just wanted to sneak on and tell you guys what's going on and what cool stuff is coming up. And I always like to let you know what's going on, and I'll go through all the comments and see what you guys are talking about and see if I need to answer any of that stuff. If not, make comments and we'll, I answer everything. Because it's important to me. Thanks for showing up, guys. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.